So yesterday we had an interesting conversation at the table, which happens on occasion here, where somebody asked, do you know the way certain saints it seems like they had a kind of a head start in sanctity or in grace. It seems they had particular graces given them which aren't given to everyone. You think of maybe a Maximilian Kolbe, who has that choice between the crown of the white crown, the red crown, the white crown of purity, the red crown of martyrdom, and he chooses them both. Again, this isn't an ordinary experience of a child. Or you think of a Padre Pio, who in his youth conversed with his guardian angel. You think of Carlo Acuta, similarly, who at a very tender age seemed to have somewhat supernatural experiences, just a supernatural awareness of grace-filled things. So then there's you, and you're just normal. So we don't have these spectacular, special gifts or graces. So the question then was phrased, are some kind of predestined to have greater sanctity than others? And we have to be very careful of that word predestination, because it sounds like that some are kind of automatically on this track towards sanctity, which the rest of us can't achieve because the Lord didn't choose us for sanctity. So that's not really the case. The Lord wants sanctity and wholeness for everybody. So how do we understand then the difference, if you will, in the graces given to certain people, and maybe your situation, which doesn't feel as supernatural at all? So I think one of the key things to understand here is that the Lord will always give us what we're capable of, and will always give us what is good for us. Like any good parent, again, we've used this example quite often, but any good parent will give their child what is good for them. Now, what is good for the child may not exactly be what the child wants. For example, broccoli or cod liver oil. I mean, these kind of things, so they just invented to torture people. I don't know what the story is, but they're apparently healthy and good for you, but they're not necessarily what the child wants. So this is what the parent knows is good for the child. It's not what the child wants, but it is good for the child ultimately. So at times the Lord, that can be the Lord's will for us, that at times, yes, what in His providence He allows happen isn't exactly pleasant at the time, but serves a greater purpose. It serves a purpose maybe of healing us or teaching us or giving us an opportunity to grow in a certain virtue. But basically in His divine wisdom, He knows that even though this experience may not be pleasant or may be downright painful, that there is a greater purpose to it. So that there are those kind of experiences. Then there are experiences then where, like, a parent may just simply allow a child or give a child ice cream or cake, something that's entirely unnecessary for the survival of the species, but just given for fun, just given for joy. So there are occasions then when the Lord will allow or provide something for us that's just for our happiness, simply for our happiness. I mean, the world or the universe, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be. It could be all grey and designed by communist Russia. I mean, it could have been. But that's not the way the Lord designed things. He designed things because He pours Himself into what He does. Then, since He is beautiful, what He does is beautiful. What He creates is beautiful. So, enjoying a beautiful walk in a forest or in a mountain or wherever it may be, going to a nice lake, enjoying a nice ice cream with biscuits, whatever it may be, all of these beautiful things that we can do can just be simply a gift from God. And as long as all these gifts cause us to thank Him, then those gifts aren't a danger. The issue becomes if these experiences, good or bad, start to turn us away from God. So we can be given good gifts. Say, for example, you have a charismatic gift. Say you have the gift of prophecy or healing or tongues, whatever it is. Then that gift starts to cause pride. It starts to make you proud. Look at how amazing I am. I can do this. Or whatever gift, it can be anything, intelligence or music, or if that gift starts to cause me to be proud of my gift and not of the giver of the gift, now we've got a problem. Now I can't actually be trusted with that gift. So it's back to the parable of the talents. One is given 5, One is given 2, one is given 1. The one who was given 1 talent, so he has a certain quantity of silver in that case, but we can also think of it in terms of ability. Rather than use that ability, rather than use that capacity he has for whatever good he can do, he buries it and does nothing with it. And all gifts are given to us to serve others. So he missed the point. It's not just about, God, you gave me a gift, I give it back to you, there you go. I didn't waste it, I just didn't use it. That's not what they're given for. They're given for others. So, any gift we're given, if we use it for the greater glory of God, then we can be trusted with more. If I'm given a gift and I use it just for myself, or I don't use it at all, then I can't be trusted with more. So if a saint is given a certain grace, now they have been given a greater responsibility, they've been given more grace, but also I'm sure that because they collaborate, like Our Lady, because they collaborate more perfectly than we do with grace, then they can be trusted with it. That supernatural gift of seeing your guardian angel or having Eucharistic experiences at a tender age, those don't become a source of pride anymore, but they just become a motivation to an ever greater love. So the key for me here, the key is our will in our lives. Our will is what really defines us as us, because it's a lot of things can be swayed. Our emotions sway a lot, depending on whether we've slept well or eaten well or whatever difficulty or struggle we may be going through. But our will ultimately decides what happens. Even before God, our will reigns supreme, because God can offer me his mercy. He, as the divine creator of the universe, can offer me his mercy, and I can say, no. My will. So I can refuse God, me, a little ant, right? Little ant in front of like a human being, right? And even that isn't a big enough gap, right? But a little ant, you are so insignificant, my little friend. I spent the morning hoovering up flies. A little fly, there we go, a little fly in front of a hoover, or in front of a human-wielding hoover. No, hang on. Hoover. The other way around, isn't it? Anyway. A little fly in front of a human being, so insignificant. Yet the little fly can refuse the human being, right? And say, no, I don't want your, what am I offering? I don't know, honey. What's a fly's like? I don't know. Everything. We can refuse God. I can say to God, I don't want you in my life. So my will, see, this is the thing that so gently, so patiently, the Lord is trying to win. He's trying to win our will. Do you choose me? Will you love? Like love is also, it's an act of the will. We choose to love. It's not just an emotion, not just a feeling. We choose to love. Will you give me your will? And this is the struggle. Like we hear today that in the gospel, like the scribes and Pharisees, they understood the liturgy, they understood sacred scripture, and they held both as sacrosanct. So they kept adding more and more rules and regulations just to try and tighten up the liturgy and living in accordance with the law of God. Okay, so they had all the rules and they had the knowledge, but ultimately the will wasn't right. The will wasn't good. The will wasn't to love and to serve. The will was very often to control and dominate. So like they took the law of God and then they turned it around to their own will, and with disastrous consequences. And Jesus calls them out on these. He just calls them hypocrites. You know the law. You know what you're supposed to do. But why won't you show charity and love towards the widow and the orphan? Like you're so caught up in your laws and your liturgies that you forget mercy and compassion and love. So the will, this is where the battle is at, in our hearts, the battle of our heart, the battle of our will. And again, so what is the will? Well, the intellect is knowing right and wrong. The will is choosing. whether I do the right or the wrong. Because everybody knows smoking is unhealthy, but people still choose to. Everyone knows that drinking to excess is bad, but people still choose to. Everybody knows that in general sin is bad, and yet we can still choose to. Everyone knows that certain things that are on the internet, or certain relationships, or certain adultery, we know these things are bad, but knowing it's bad doesn't stop you from doing it. It should. But the will reigns supreme. The will. So present it with grace, present it with sin, present it with virtue, present it with vice. Do I choose God and His will? Do I choose to align my will with His will? Do I choose to fuse my will with His? That's the question, and that's where sanctity is lived out. And if that's a hidden thing that no one sees, it doesn't really matter. If that's a very public thing, like it eventually became with Padre Pio, well, so be it. But ultimately, the kernel, the heart of it, the crux of the matter is my will. My will. Do I choose the Lord? Do I choose to pray? I know I'm supposed to. Great, good. You know you're supposed to. Did you? Do you? Or I could, or I should pray more often, or I have the opportunity, but I could go to Mass. Okay, did you? Do you? Are you choosing this? Otherwise, it's just head knowledge, and knowledge is fine, but knowledge isn't what gets you into heaven. It's us choosing to live from the mercy of God. So today we ask the Lord to illuminate our will, to help us to recognize what God's desires, what God's plans are for my life. Our will. Lord, that I can align my will with yours and pray with Our Lady. Be it done unto me according to thy word. Amen.